All right, so hello, Professor Bowler. I'm William Slattery again. I'm here with Bill Slattery. He is CEO of New Amsterdam Partners. Could you just tell my professor what your company is?
New Amsterdam Advisors, we are a global life science strategic advisory firm, and we are assisting private life science companies from around the world on a number of business development areas, especially from making introductions to help them with their various cap rounds, as well as out licensing throughout the world, especially in China. And we can also do additional business development through strategic partnering with corporate venture groups around the world, as well as other pharmaceutical companies around the world.
So obviously you're dealing with people who work around the world. What is your first step in communicating with an employee who begins to consistently make errors, or a partner, one of your partners?
Well, you sit down with them very calmly and address what the issue is and why it's occurring. And if it's a situation where it's from lack of knowledge and error that needs to be addressed immediately, and if it's a more substantial issue that requires a review of himself and the department, then we will conduct that accordingly.
Absolutely. As a CEO, what advice would you give someone stepping into their leadership role for the first time?
You must empathize with the individual that you're working with, understand where they're coming from, and foresee the problems that they might encounter and try to address those prior to that person reaching those problems.
Absolutely. Just kind of going off that, as a leader yourself, many years in your role, are there certain ways you tend to check yourself on growing as a leader in terms of improving?
Listening to your employees and talking to colleagues who are in a similar position as you are to see how they're addressing issues that are in the sector and also with their individual company. And we try to solicit advice from each other. And I think it's key to always be available to your colleagues, that they can contact you at any time, and that they have made a similar offer to yourself. So there's always a good flow of information back and forth that you can bring back to your individual company and to your employees.
Do you feel that feedback's key as well?
Feedback's always key.
Feedback, yeah, absolutely. From an ethical standpoint, how do you, when you're looking for partners or employees, what criteria do you look at to ensure that you have an employee or a partner that is proactive and is working well with you?
How they are responding to the task at hand, what their educational background is, what their experience is, which is probably the most important thing. Education will get you so far. It's really the day-to-day experience that you really learn on the job and how you interface with others. And you always get feedback from their colleagues that they're working with if things are running smoothly or not. And you can see it at the end of the month by the results that they're producing or not producing.
Do you feel that sometimes you've had to say no to a client because they didn't fit in with your values?
Absolutely. You always are trying to work with a team that's going to make you effective. And one bad client can really just drain you mentally and physically. And it's best not to have that client if that's going to interfere with the rest of your operation.
Absolutely. So now your business, a lot of it is working to raise money for other companies. It's almost like a consultancy. Would that be fair to say?
That's right.
So how do you motivate people to obviously group people together, really connect people? How do you motivate different groups to?
Well, that comes through experience of working with different companies over the years and knowing who's going to work well on a project.
What are some of the most difficult personalities? Everyone has their quirks, but what are some of the most difficult personalities?
Someone that thinks they know how to do something before that they've ever done it.
And do you encounter that a lot?
Not as much as you would think, but you do encounter it and you try to head it off as quick as possible before it becomes a problem.
How do you make sure you communicate with your team effectively? I know you have partners around the world.
Every day you're in contact with them. There's a set time we talk to London. There's a set time we talk to the Asian markets in the evening. And we try to do those calls in the evening to Asia because you want them to take what was discussed during the meeting and they have a whole day in front of them. They want to move forward with those ideas. If you do it during our morning is their evening, and they're going to go to sleep, and they're not going to remember all the key points of that discussion.
Okay, so you want them to kind of reflect,
That's right.
in a way, play a little
Exactly.
strategy. Um, what is your leadership style?
I think if I had a motto, it would be to suggest but don't insist, unless it's imperative that you insist. Hopefully, if you suggest and they take the initiative themselves, then you don't have to insist. You're seeing them in action. So always suggest, work with them, and be a mentor toward them, and not be someone with a bullwhip, because I think that is counterproductive. You might get them to do it that one time, but they're going to resent it, and you're going to see their productivity fall off.
So obviously you look for proactive workers. I think it goes without saying.
Well, I think if you see people over the years who have been successful in other companies and the rest, I think you see that there's a core character to them that you want them to grow within your structure. If they don't have that core initiative character to get things done on their own, no matter how much you mention them, then they will never truly be successful.
So that intrinsic motivation is so key.
It's key. And you want to see people who have been successful in other areas when they're in school, they're in sports, they're in leadership of clubs. They're doing things well and beyond their 9-to-5 requirements.
Absolutely. So now, obviously, when you're working with your employees, and your partners, do you kind of take a hands-off approach in a lot of ways? Just let the
You want them to understand the situation, what needs to be done, and you want them to work within the parameters, but come up with their own formulation, because that's going to get them interested, and they know this is their project.
Is the idea behind that to really let them buy into the process?
Yes, they own it then. You want ownership of their project, and because once they take command of it, they are assuming all the responsibility, whether it's going to be successful or not. And so they're very motivated to get it done properly.
Okay. As a leader, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've made over the years in your working career?
Sometimes you give someone the benefit of the doubt when you know your gut that they probably won't be able to do it, and then you kind of regret doing that. You really want to make sure that and that comes through experiences, understanding different personalities and getting things done with people that you know have the wherewithal to get it done properly, and not just take a risk on a flyer on someone who may have never had experience in doing this before.
So I guess you get better over time with reading people?
Absolutely, that's just life, and I think the Jewish faith has a very good nodal point. The age 40 is the age of wisdom, and I think that's a great mark, because by age 40 you've seen pretty much all the different personality types out there in life, and then it becomes a repeat. And but I always thought that was a wonderful demarcation for this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Obviously, you were going into the city a lot pre-pandemic. How did the pandemic really change the way you did business?
We decided that since we couldn't do a lot of things locally, we'd go global, and we just expanded. You always have to look at every problem as an opportunity, and that definitely presented a very interesting set of problems, but we also saw it as offering phenomenal opportunities that we have taken full advantage of, and we've expanded quite a bit.
Do you feel that, in a way, the pandemic has helped you in a lot of ways expand your business?
I think it's made us think outside the box, and I think that's always a good thing, that you don't get set in your ways. And I think those challenges on a day-to-day basis always makes you grow as a person, but it also makes the firm grow in multiple ways.
What avenues do you see the company going now in the future?
We're going to keep on expanding globally. We're going to be taking in more experts that we can pass the baton off to, and looking at hiring more people down the road who have certain skill sets that we feel we need going forward.
Okay. In terms of working with business ethics, how has that been in terms of, obviously a lot of people think we're moving into a recession. Do you see a lot of clients or employees sometimes try to take shortcuts, and you have to kind of steer them in the right direction? Or
Well, we haven't seen it too much, but I could see that being an issue for certain companies, and I think you just have to be on top of them if you feel that they're going to be going off the program.
kind of staying with that vein, obviously you're dealing with international partners. How does culture kind of play into that as well?
Well, as you're dealing with more internationals on this basis, there is a commonality that's being developed here. You have to respect where they're coming from in their time zones and the way that they've done business. And you don't try to change that as much. You kind of modify how you're approaching things so that there is a meeting of minds to get the project done, and how they want to do it within their traditional way of doing it, that's fine, as long as it gets done properly.
Okay. So it's like the process in a lot
It's
of
the
ways.
process and the goal, what needs to be done, that no everything is done above board, there's no issues from that perspective, and that it's all done properly and the clients are happy.
What's, just to kind of finish up here, what is the biggest maybe learning curve you had with culture?
I just think you just try to work on a time frame. Sometimes certain groups will work a little bit more methodically, others will work on a faster basis. So I think how they approach it in terms of speed is the biggest obstacle that one has to learn about, and then work with them without driving them crazy or having them drive you crazy.
I guess so. So I get, obviously you're emailing constantly, so you just have to make
Well, with
sure.
texting and technology now, you can do a lot of things that you probably would never have been able to do. That I can on every day talking to London, I know more about local politics and events in London than maybe I care to know. But it's good to know that, because you know where they're coming from and the issues that they're facing on a daily basis.
Exactly, it breaks the ice in a lot of ways.
It does, and use whatever you can for commonality these days.
Exactly, you got to find that common ground.
Right.
I guess break the ice in terms of culture. Yeah, Bill, thank you so much for helping. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Bowler, and I will see you in class soon.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.